Thanks for joining me today. Today, I'm going to jump right into it because this has been on my mind for a while. I am going to talk about health care, more specifically, health insurance, and the debate between what we have now and Medicare for all. Which one is best for the United States? Which way should we go? Why should we go that way? How should we think about this? What data points do we have to analyze what's best for us? Um, and I will confess, it's something that I should have thought about a long time ago. But when you're brought up into a system, you don't really think about it. It's just the way things are. And that's the way that you do things. And you just go along with it. It sucks. But, what else do you have? Well, we've got choices. And I want to talk about those choices. So I want to talk about what we have now, because I think a lot of the narrative is colored by what the alternative is, what Medicare All is, and all of the noise surrounds that, but nobody's really talking about what we have now. It's kind of taken for granted. It's just the system, it's what we have, it's here, it's working more or less, but this is what we've got and it's kept me alive so far, kind of thing, right? So let's talk about it. So I want to go through some statistics and numbers so that we can compare actual data points here. So what do we have currently? So with our current private system, we currently spend about $11,000 total per person a year on healthcare. Now, this includes your healthcare premiums, obviously. It includes your co-pays, co-insurance, all of that, all those different costs there. It also includes your employer's portion to what you pay towards insurance. So your employer pays a nice healthy chunk towards your insurance. And that's something that I don't think I hear anybody really talking about. But out of that 11,000, you're probably looking at around $3,000 to $4,000 that your employer pays. So on your behalf, we spend about $11,000 on a person that has about a $50,000 salary. So you can kind of see right here where they spell some of that out right here. We spend about $3.5 trillion on healthcare. Like I said, that averages out to about $11,000 per person if you include all of the money that is spent on your behalf. Now, again, all of that doesn't come directly out of your pocket because of your employer for the most part. But on average, that's how the number breaks down. And you can see the rise in cost. It is slated to almost double in 10 years. So by 2027, we're looking to spend about $6 trillion, which is about $17,000 per person in the United States. So you can see that in this chart right here. So that's how much you're spending. That's how much is coming out of our pocket, whether by money that is not being spent on our wages, but instead being spent towards our healthcare through our employers, or through money coming out of our pocket. I really want you to keep in mind that number of $3.5 trillion. Keep that number in the back of your mind as we continue towards the end of the video. So now I want to look at, this is a pretty cool calculator that I found about our healthcare costs. So you can kind of see how much it costs for insurance. So let's say you have employer insurance through your employer. It's just you, and you make $50,000 a year, and you're better health, let's just say. Okay. Yeah. So you're going to end up spending about the average, which is about $11,250, is being spent on your behalf, I should say. And that's all of these costs on the right hand side that contribute to that. So you got your out of pocket costs, you got your health insurance premiums, You got your taxes and stuff that go to like Medicaid and all that kind of stuff, Medicare, Medicaid, all that junk, right? So let's talk about the price of some of this care. Let's talk about how much these procedures cost in the first place. So you go, something happens to you and you chip a tooth or you fall down and break your leg or something like that. How much does this stuff cost? And I'm pretty sure most of us are familiar with some of these costs. So an ambulance ride can range between $200 and $2,000 just to get you from point A to point B to get you some care. Why does a ride from point A to point B cost $2,000 in an ambulance? That's ridiculous. I could see if it was a helicopter, uh, I could see that. I can't see an ambulance costing $2,000 just to get you to the hospital. That's madness. That's madness. I'm sorry. A hospital stay. I mean, you're in the five figures. You're in the five figures for a hospital stay. That's crazy. Like you could stay a whole month at the Ritz Carlton for that much money. I mean, probably more than a month at the Ritz for that kind of money. Why is it $10,000 for a hospital stay for a couple of days? And this isn't talking about weeks on end. It's not talking about weeks on end because I've seen hospital bills. We're talking about a few days. We're talking about like delivering a baby or something where you're in there for like 2 or 3 days or whatnot. 10,000, five figures, five figures. A quarter of most people's yearly pay to stay in a hospital for a few days. Urgent care. I'm gonna have to look into this a little bit more. I'm kind of dubious around these numbers because it says, if you have insurance, it's like $150 per patient, but I got to look into that a little bit more. But broken bone treatment. I think I saw somewhere where just to get a cast, this right here is talking about just to get a cast is $2,500. This is not talking about surgery. This is talking about putting a cast around your arm for broken bones, $2,500. I could see maybe $500 on the high end. Why is it costing $2,500 to put a cast on your arm? I mean, these numbers would be astronomical anywhere else. A concussion, you get a concussion, you're playing basketball or something, slip and bounce your head off of the ground, 18 grand, $18,000. Okay. Let's talk about, you got a toothache. You get a toothache and you need an extraction or a crown or something like that. You're talking $75 to $300. Okay, I can see that. I can see the just for the extraction, $75 to $300, or 150 to 650 if it's surgical and uses anesthesia. So double the cost if you need anesthesia and it becomes a surgical situation. Then you're gonna have a hole in your mouth, so you're gonna need something to replace that tooth, and then you're out another $300 to $800. $821 for a porcelain fused crown. So you're basically out about $1,000 right there. X-ray, I don't get this. I mean, it's below $1,000 at least, so I guess that's good. But the X-ray takes all of 5 minutes. All of 5 minutes, and that's $400 up in smoke. CAT scan. Now I've had one of these done before, either CAT scan or MRI. I can't remember which one, but it was definitely on the upper end of this range. It was about $4,000 before insurance and like $2,000 after insurance. Nuts, nuts. I could not believe for 30 minutes of time to sit in a machine. And I know the machines cost a lot of money, but they do a lot of procedures. How many procedures do you think it takes before that machine is paid for? How many procedures do you think it takes to pay for the office and for the staff? I mean, it- this is insane. Even if the machine cost 500,000, $500,000, I don't even know how much they cost. I can look that up if you want. This is $5,000 per procedure, $4,000 per procedure, which takes 30 minutes. How many people do you think they run through that machine every day? This is madness. Madness. Okay. Um, these costs are just out of control, and we have no leverage on this. We have no control on this, and nobody ever talks about how outrageous these costs are. So, denied coverage. So there are as many as 53 million insured Americans may be in jeopardy from insurance companies that just refuse to cover the treatment. So let's think about this. You pay for a service, you pay for that service to help you when you're hurt or when you need it, when you can't help yourself. You pay for that service, you expect it, then you go in and then you need it, and then you utilize the service that you believe and you pay for to be covered. And then they come back and tell you, nah, I'm not going to cover you. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. So you've paid into the system all these years, all this money for this one time that you really needed. And then they have the power somehow to tell you no, we're not going to cover it. You're on your own. Thanks for the money that you paid, though. Appreciate it. This madness. So, based on this website, based on this survey that they did, is somewhere between 6 and 40% of people were denied coverage, just depending on your geography and stuff like that. Somewhere between 6, even if it's 6%, that 6% of people paid their premiums. They did what they were supposed to do. They held up their end of the bargain, and the insurance company can just be like, "Nah, I'm good, good on that." So that's crazy. That's crazy, but that's okay. So honestly, it could all be worth it if it was if we were getting better health outcomes out of it. If we were healthier because we put up with all of this crap that we put up with the insurance companies and the copays and all this stuff, if it all led to better results, then the ends justify the means, right? Well, let's take a look, and I'm pretty sure you know where this is going. So, mortality rates. The green line is the United States. The blue line is the average of the other countries, that the other first world countries. And on this chart, lower is better. So guess where the green line falls? It's above every other country, like every other country, not just the average, but you can also see the faint lines kind of in there. And there is no other line above the United States. So our mortality rate is the highest of all of them. So we die more than everybody else. Interesting. Uh, Here's another representation of that chart. Who's at the bottom? United States, of course. Um, let's see. Here, I think this is another. Oh, this is a disease burden. So we're more diseased by far than any other country. What? We're more diseased in the US than any other country. I mean, okay. Wow. Um, Hospital admissions for preventable diseases. I mean, this is crazy. Okay, so we got them beat on hypertension, though. We got them beat, y'all. We got them beat on hypertension. Uh-oh. Watch out, we're coming. Here's a good talking point for the politicos. So apparently we love our health insurance. We love our private health care. We love our private insurers. Not our doctors, but our private insurance. You know, the unions have fought long and hard to get their good benefits and this and that, right? So let's see. What does this say? This particular chart is talking about whether Americans trust insurance companies. Um, looks pretty split to me. About 50-50. So we so on these beloved insurance companies. So I don't know where they're getting we love insurance companies. Down here, even the public says they use confusing language. So people know that they're trying to confuse us. You know what I mean? So they're trying to confuse us and we don't trust them. So what is there to love? We don't love them. And honestly, I wouldn't care if this chart was like 99% of people love the insurance company. So what? That doesn't it's a meaningless talking point. We love private insurance and we can't take it away, you know, from these poor people. We can't take away their beloved health insurance companies or you know, they're going to freak out. So what? So who cares? Who cares? I mean, I don't get it, but okay. Um, if that's the best that you have is that people love their abusers, I mean, you got to come stronger than that, bruh. I come stronger than that. I'll even give that point to you. Okay, Americans love their abusers. Talk to me about the rest of these numbers. Talk to me about the rest of these numbers. Where are we at? So we're worse off after paying all this money. People don't trust or like their health insurance companies. Not talking about doctors, we're talking about health insurance. People don't love their health insurance companies. And even if they did, that would be stupid because their health insurance is tied to their job. So if they ever lose their job, quit, or get fired, or laid off, or they switch jobs, guess what? They don't probably won't have the same health insurance company. And also, companies switch health insurance companies all the time. So it makes no sense to fall in love with a health insurance company to the point where you're willing to do worse to keep them. You're willing to be less healthy to keep them. Like, come on. Um, okay, but it's cheaper at least, right? So the narrative is, oh, you know, Medicare for all is so expensive, or it's going to drive a hole into the budget. You know, the national debt. What about my debt? Okay, well, let's look at how much it costs around the world for healthcare. Let's see, because we're doing the best out of all of this, right? Okay, so how does it compare with other countries? Ooh, that's bonus stuff. I'm gonna get to that in a second. But this right here. So you see that big old spike at the left where it talks about spending? This is spending per person. Now they have a slightly different number here, 8,200 versus the 11,000 I saw on the other site, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. Um, so on the left, you have 8,200 for the United States, and the next highest country is Norway at $5,300. $5,300 is less than $8,200 and damn sure less than $11,000. Okay. The average, which is the red bar in the middle, is $3,200. $3,200 is less than, say it with me, $8,200 for the United States. So we are spending, what is that? Almost three, in some cases, more than three times more than the average first world country for worse outcomes, more stress, less control to, because we love our health insurance companies. We love Aetna. We love Blue Cross, Blue Shield. Okay. Show me something. Show me something. I didn't know this before I started to look up for this video, but there are fewer physicians in the United States versus the other 34 first world countries, where we have 2.4 practicing physicians per thousand, where the other countries have an average of 3.1. So we're below average on the amount of doctors that we have per person. I thought we would have had more, but apparently we have less. And it kind of makes sense as much as medical school costs and everything, but we have less. And the reason why this struck me is because people talk about rationing of care. Uh, I guess their fear is that they're going to have to wait for stuff. And I question how many people have actually gone to the doctor, because usually when you call a doctor, you don't go to the doctor right away. You set an appointment for whatever it is that you need for most stuff. And then if you have an emergency, then you go to the emergency room or whatever. And a lot of times you still have to wait. I've been to the emergency room. The doctor wasn't like, all right, come right on in, son. They have an emergency waiting room where you have to wait. And in any other procedure that I've had to see a doctor for, I've had to schedule. And I'm not sure I know of any doctor that you would have some sort of procedure for, like an outpatient procedure, and not have to schedule it in the future. So isn't rationing something like that? How would it be different? You need something, you call a doctor and say, hey, I need this thing. And they say, okay, we can fit you in 2 weeks or whatever the schedule is. How's that different? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, we have less doctors per person, which would mean ostensibly more waiting per person than other countries. And the number of hospital beds in the US is also less. We got 2.6 per thousand versus 3.4 average per thousand. So even if you do need a hospital bed, even if you do have an emergency where you have to go to the hospital, you're less likely to get a bed. You're less likely to get a bed than in other countries. But we have the best healthcare though. We have the best healthcare though. Our life expectancy is lower. Our infant mortality rate is higher than other countries. But we've got the best though. And we're willing to pay more for it though. For what? What are we getting? What is the return on investment here? If I'm going to pay twice as much for something, I expect to get at least twice the results of something else that's cheaper. I expect the quality to be at least twice as good. So what are we doing? What am I paying for? What am I paying for? All right. So let's talk about Medicare for all as far as the cost, because, but it's going to cost, 50 trillion, billion, gazillion dollars, and we can't afford that. The national debt and stuff, it's going to, the debt. Yeah, it's too expensive. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. We're already paying $3.5 trillion. Remember, I told you, remember that number, $3.5 trillion for crappy care as it is. We can't afford something more, right? Good. Love that you brought that up. I love this talking point. I live for it. Let's go. All right. Estimates that I found range from 13 trillion to $34 trillion over 10 years for Medicare for all. And I cannot stand these numbers. because they are over 10 years and nothing else is ever reported over 10 years. So it's not apples to apples. This feels and smells like it's designed to make it sound super expensive. Oh, trillion, 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 right? Okay, that's fine. So let's talk about these numbers. Let's first of all break it down to an average per year, which would be 1.3 trillion to 3.4 trillion per year for Medicare for all. Okay, so first of all, we need to understand that half of that, about 65%, is already being spent on Medicare now. Something they don't tell you. Medicare right now costs $583 billion per year. So that is money that's going to be spent on Medicare, regardless of if we do Medicare for all or not. It's already spent. It's already accounted for in the 13 or the 1.3 to 3.4 trillion. Already accounted for Medicare for all. Medicare already covers the sickest part of the population, which is the older generation. They're the ones that need the care the most. They're the ones that have the most going on. They're already covered by Medicare. But nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. We, say it with me now, already spend $3.5 trillion a year right now. And I don't know where some of these people went to elementary school or pre-K, but where I'm from, 3.5 trillion is more than 3.4 trillion. And that was the highest estimate that I could find, was $3.4 trillion a year for Medicare for all to replace our entire medical system as far as insurance with Medicare for all. So under the most conservative estimate, you're saving $100 billion per year. Okay. And you're going to see at the end here why I don't care if we had to spend more. I don't care if Medicare for all cost more. I don't care if it was $4 trillion a year. And you're going to see why here in just a second. What else isn't talked about? Employers, the employer contribution. Okay, this is a cost that you don't really see, because it's taken from your salary before you even get it. It's never even offered to you. Your employer just pays you $50,000 a year, and then they take $5,000 a year or whatever. Instead of paying you that money, they pay it towards your health care. They pay it towards your health insurance. So your salary is really $55,000 a year, but you just never even see $5,000 of it. And I know because I've helped set up employer plans before, and I talked them through this stuff as far as setting up benefits for employees. So that's a significant cost that you're not even aware of on a day-to-day basis. Another thing that's not talked about, health insurance, when it comes to Medicare for all, has the ability to be progressively taxed. So in other words, it's taxed, it could be taxed as a percentage of your income versus a flat tax like it is now. So right now, probably everybody at the company pays the same thing for healthcare. They might have a tier or something like that for highly compensated employees, whatever. But in general, everybody's paying the same thing, apples and apples for healthcare. A single person is going to be paying a single person rate for healthcare at that company, right? So in general, it doesn't matter if you're making $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year. The same amount's coming out your pocket. Where if it's a tax, it can be taxed progressively. It can be taxed as a percentage of income, which means the lower income people are going to pay less for healthcare because they can afford to bear less because they make less money. So instead of half of your paycheck Going to your health insurance, it would be a set percentage of your paycheck. So it definitely could benefit lower income people, as the higher income people shoulder more of the burden because they can afford to, while the percent can still be the same. It can be 4%, 5%, whatever of your check, and it's going to affect $300,000 person just like it's going to affect the $30,000 person, but everybody's covered. So people aren't thinking about that stuff when they talk about, oh, it's going to cost more, because you know who the ones that are talking about it's going to cost more. It's the ones that are making $30,000 a year that don't think they can afford anything, where in reality, it's going to be way cheaper for them. I mean, right now, just talking about premiums, they're probably paying $200, $300, $400 a month as it is. But, I want to talk about the real hot take. And I kind of gave you a preview earlier. I want to talk about the real hot take here. The king measure here, which is the stress of this crazy nut job system that we have when you compare it to all the other systems. The stress about worrying about co-pays, co-insurance, deductibles, health savings accounts, in and out of network, this and that, uh, stuff that's not covered, and denied claims, and medical credit cards, and medical debt, medical collections, and credit scores, and switching jobs meaning different coverage, and losing my job means dying of a infected cut, and stupid wellness checks so you can save a little discount on your insurance that year, and you have to dance through these little hoops and get poked and prodded, and get this physical and tobacco certification junk just so you can save a little bit that you should already be saving on your health insurance anyway, and annual enrollments. And I got to remember to check this box and that box, and see how my health insurance went up 10% that year, because I got to enroll in annual enrollment. And if I don't, then I don't have health insurance, and I can't get health insurance for the rest of the year if I happen to miss that particular small little window. And if I get a cavity and just one tooth, one wrong tooth that's too many tooth back, then it's $1,000 for a root canal, versus if it was just one tooth over, then I would have been covered. All this silly mess. And I'm just going to go ahead and try a home remedy, because going to the doctor and paying $300 just for them to give me a stupid little pill isn't even worth the time or money to go, when I already know what they're going to say. But I'm not spending $300 and jumping through all these hoops just for them to turn around and tell me to take this one little pill and I'm good to go. And pharma companies raising their cancer drug prices 1,000%, because they know that people can't afford not to take the drug, so that they can raise it to whatever price they feel like raising it. It's just low enough so it doesn't cause any heat on social media. And the stupid Cialis commercials with an old guy in a tub on the beach that makes no sense at all. It has no connection to the drug at all, or what the heck is going on. I'm trying to tell you this. I'm actually willing to pay more so I don't have to deal with all this crap. I don't care if Medicare for all costs the same money as it costs right now. I don't care if it costs even more than it costs right now. If I didn't have to worry about co-insurance, if I didn't have to worry about deductibles, if I didn't have to worry about breaking my leg costing me $30,000, and all this crap, and I didn't have to see stories about people getting ran over by a train, and while the train is still on top of them, they're telling people not to call the ambulance because they're worried it's going to cost them too much and break the bank on them. If I didn't have to worry about all that, I'll pay more. People are willing to pay more for quality, including me, when it makes sense. And even though stuff costs way too much, even though all of this stuff is going on, I'll pay more for just to not have to deal with the stress of having to deal with this health insurance system, nickel and dime in every single possible inventive way that they can figure out how to extract more dollars from my body. That's the real hot take. But Luckily, by some twist of fate, it actually costs less. And it costs something like 10% less, or it may cost 3 times less. Somewhere in there, I don't care if it costs the same, but it happens to cost less. So I challenge anybody out there to come tell me why it makes sense to keep this system. I don't want to hear no bullshit about, oh, people just, it's too fast. It's too much. People are used to this system and they're going to be upset if the change happens. I don't give a shit about your comfort with your abuser. I don't give a fuck if you don't, if you're uncomfortable with the fact that you're losing your stupid abusive health insurance company that you never cared about anyway, that has never done anything really for you but take your money and possibly run it through a Russian roulette if they're going to pay you when you need it or not. I don't care. I just don't care. All this, it's politically feasible and nobody's going to go for it. You don't know. You don't speak for everybody. If you told a person that is currently paying $11,000 for this crap medical system that we have, this garbage situation that we have, and you explain to them the facts of the situation right this very moment, on average, you are paying $11,000 out of your ass for this crappy system. And we can flip a switch and you will pay $9,000 a year for a better system that has been proven 34 times over to be better, and you will live longer. You will have less stress. You won't have to worry about all these forms and all these co-insurances and all these annual enrollments and Cialis commercials. You won't have to worry about getting sick and then having your medicine price jacked up by $1,000 behind your back. I bet you they'll be okay with it. And if they're not, fuck them. Because there's something mentally wrong with them. And we shouldn't allow mentally ill people to make adult choices. They need to be watched. They need help. So actually not fuck them, actually get them Medicare for all so they can get the help that they need. But don't come to me talking about, oh, people just aren't comfortable with it. People weren't comfortable with highways before there were highways. People weren't comfortable with Social Security before there was Social Security. People weren't comfortable with a lot of shit. I don't give a fuck. All I care about is what is better, what is best, what is the right path, comfortable or fucking not. You should listen to the numbers, and the numbers say Medicare for all is cheaper and it's better and it's higher quality. They have invented every kind of way to extract as much money out of the system and pay out as little money as they possibly can, because that's their job in a capitalist system. A capitalist job is to make as much money as possible and pay out as little money as possible. That's why health insurance companies cannot be allowed anywhere near health insurance, cannot be allowed anywhere near the health sector. But I challenge anybody to debate me as to why this system is better. Why should we pay more and get less? Why is that a better system? Talk to me. Smoke.